everybody. I'm back again. My name's Fred Hughes, Amazon best-selling science fiction author. The name of the show is The Next Chapter. I want to thank Biz TV for letting me, get on and record this show and talk about the written word. Um, Before we delve into other things, I want to talk about today's guest, Dawn Chapman. She has a new book coming out with Chris Kennedy Publishing. And when she comes on, you'll notice she talks a little funny. She's from the UK, has a long background in writing over there. Some people here in the States may know of her work. She's written some science fiction series here in the US. Something that I'm extraordinarily jealous of is the fact that she's also involved in audio work. She's actually done some of her own audio work. She's involved with editing and splicing together and doing all of that for audio work for book narrations. She's written screenplays, which I can't imagine doing. And on top of all of that, she's found time to write book series. She's got some stuff out that Podium has published. She's got some stuff with other more traditional publishing houses, both here in the States and in the UK. And now she's writing a lit RPG series for Chris Kennedy, which the first book, today's, as of, this show's getting recorded on the 1st of February. And you can actually, I shouldn't be saying this, Chris will get upset. You can actually find her book on Amazon right now, even though it's not supposed to be out till next week. Little secret about Chris Kennedy. I don't know about the other publishing houses, but Chris, quote unquote, let's say my last book, which came out on the 3rd of January. Quote unquote, the official publication date is the 3rd of January. But because sometimes Amazon has issues with a book. They might not like the formatting. They might not like the cover all of a sudden. And if you wait till the day it's supposed to be published, you might find that Amazon rejects the book. Plus, on top of that, they'll tell you that it could take up to 48 hours for their approval. So for a January the 3rd release date for my Hero Shadow book, Chris actually put it up on New Year's Eve day. It was actually up on Amazon for sale on the 31st of December. Just in case there was an issue. And I know as a fact that it happens. I was at a convention 2 years ago, and I hadn't been working for, writing for Chris for very long at the point, and I was interacting with another fellow author who wrote for Chris, and that day at the convention, she was supposed to have a book that officially came out, and all of a sudden she got a text from Chris that there was an issue. Amazon thought that the cover was too violent, and they were rejecting the book. They wouldn't allow it to go live on Amazon. So they had to scramble around, and this is the day that the book's supposed to be released. So Chris and the cover artist who he had doing the cover were scrambling around, trying to come up, either modify the existing cover or come up with a cover that Amazon would find be satisfied with. And they managed to do it, and the book went live, on the date it was supposed to. Unfortunately, even though it was, 3 or 4 hours late actually being live. So lesson learned, Chris always puts it up early. So if you have a favorite author with Chris Kennedy Publishing and you know that there's a book coming out, you can start looking for it 3 or 4 days before it's actually supposed to be live, and you'll probably find it on Amazon. Okay. Something that I hinted at in last week's show that I wanted to delve into a little bit more. I don't think I went into it well deep enough last week. Right now is a tough time for authors as far as selling books. Um, with a transition in government, in the United States, we have a new president. The makeup of both the House and the Senate has changed. And there's a lot of people that are concerned about how the country is going to do going forward, and they're holding on to money. They're not spending it. And you can see this across the board. I mean, people are, if it's a discretionary spending, they're not spending the money. Yeah, I'd like a new car, but the old one will be okay for another 6 months till I find out how the economy's really going to do. So they're holding on to money, and people out there are not spending money on new authors. So new authors, authors that don't already have a following, are having a really tough time selling books. So um, I encourage those of you out there, because I know there are a lot of you out there that have Kindle Unlimited, and you're spending your, I don't even know what Kindle Unlimited is, what, 9.99 or something like that a month to subscribe to Kindle Unlimited, and you can have up to 10 books, I think, on your device that you can be reading. Um, pick up a book from a new author and give it a shot. I mean, these are, I can tell you now, if they're coming out from a publisher, I mean, even if they're an indie, but especially if they're coming from a publisher, number one, it's going to be well edited, or at least edited enough where it's not going to be hard to read. That publisher isn't spending time getting a book ready and putting it up unless he thought it could sell. So there are knowledgeable people in the publishing house. And I'm primarily talking about what some of us refer to as indie publishers, like Chris Kennedy, like Canon Publishing, like Atheon, where they basically digitally publish the book. They put it up for Kindle Unlimited. And you can buy paperback copies through Amazon from them. They are not bought, that you will not find books on bookshelves somewhere from most of these publishing houses because the money isn't there. First off, walk into any Barnes and Noble and take a look at how many science fiction or fantasy books are on the shelves. There's not a lot. If you're like me and you go back and you think about 20 years ago, I remember walking into Barnes and Noble 20 years ago because, frankly, it was the only way you could get books. Digital was just starting. There was no such thing as Kindle Unlimited. Um, so you went to Barnes and Noble, or if you're older, you went to Borders or Walden Books or any other local books, local mom and pop stores, and that's where you got your books. And I remember wandering up and down the aisles, you know, rack after rack after rack. Probably two whole aisles of science fiction, probably another two whole aisles of fantasy, and staring and gawking at all the books. And this is where I learned that covers make a difference because a cover would catch my eye and I'd stop and pick up the book and read the back data. Um, well, Barnes and Noble isn't like that anymore. Barnes and Noble might have four bookshelf, you know, wide science fiction books. And two of those, call it 16 shelves, will be hardbacks, and the rest will be what they call trade paperbacks. And there's probably only two shelves worth of new stuff. Most of the stuff, if you go into almost any bookstore, most of the stuff on the shelf is what is backlog. It's I don't want to say historical books, but the well-known authors' early works or well-known authors' works that sold very well and their books are still on the shelf. So if you go in, you'll see, oh, a lot of David Weber's early stuff, a lot of Eric Flint's early stuff. The same goes for, Larry Correia, whatever. Um, but you won't find a lot of their new stuff. You'll find Dune. You'll find Battlefield Earth. New authors can't get on the shelf. So use your Kindle Unlimited. Give a new author a try. So when we come back from the break, we're going to talk to Dawn Chapman. And she's going to tell us about her new lit RPG book that Chris is doing. And she's going to tell us about all the other envious things that she does that the rest of us wish we could do. I'm Fred Hughes, and this is the next chapter. See you in just a moment. Back after the break, and as promised, here's today's guest, Dawn Chapman. And if you listen carefully, you notice that she talks funny. Dawn just has literally as of when we're taping the show, has a brand new book out, and I asked her to come on to talk about her book and talk about the rest of her career and how she got started in this. So thank you, Dawn Chapman, for being on the show.
Well, thank you for having me. It's and I do talk funny. I'm from the UK, so my accent. A lot of people in the States actually like it, but I personally don't like my own. That's just me.
Well, that's same with me. I mean, so yeah. All of us have that hang up about, I sound funny.
Yeah, I sound funny.
So let's talk about your new book. It's actually today's the 1st of February, and your book is out next week.
It's the 7th, so Friday.
Yeah, and actually, I'll tell you a little secret. As I was looking stuff up, your book is live on Amazon right now.
Cool. So, it is good.
So, and Chris sometimes does that just to make sure there aren't any hiccups with, I remember one time I was at a con, and another of Chris's authors was there, and she had a book coming out that day, and we were at the con, and all of a sudden Chris texted her that,
there's a problem.
Amazon thinks the cover has too much graphic violence on it, and they rejected it. And so they scrambled around for 3 hours trying to come up with a cover so that it could go live when it was supposed to. So he's learned his lesson, and he puts them up early now.
Friday is a bad day as well for it. So it's like, it's really good to get it in a little bit early.
Yeah. But all of my stuff comes out on Friday, which means actually good. They're live on Amazon on Tuesday or Wednesday, and
nice.
It does give it a chance to build up a little momentum. So let's talk about your new book. So tell us about it.
So it's called Interstellar Pawn, and it's a sci-fi lit RPG progression fantasy. So it might slightly be something different compared to what some readers are used to, because I write in a specific genre that involves sort of like video game progression. And I started writing it in the end of 2023. So it's a good, 12 months worth of work and editing and all that sort of that comes with it, with sort of like making a series. It's been through a lot, just like me, but that's all right.
So tell us a little bit about the book. I mean, it's lit RPG, and that actually, I don't know about the UK, but it's really hot here in the States.
It is. A lot of my readers are already, I have a lot of fans already in the US. Most of my readers do come from the US. So it's written in US English, not British English, because that always trips people up. There still might be the odd one or two things that, I mean, even my narrator points out that that's a little bit British, that Dawn. And I'm like, well, I can't get them all out. It's the odd thing that you will find, and that's fine.
So tell us about the storyline and your characters.
It follows my main character called Troy, and he basically loses all his family at the beginning of the book, finds a spaceship, and is left with like the what am I going to do, kind of thing. When he boards the spaceship and he actually gets to it, he realizes there's somebody in cryogenics, and he's sort of lost some of his memories from childhood from an accident. So some of his memories start to come back on like what's been going on. And the person that's in cryogenics is a different species, but was brought up with him on sort of like on the planet that they lived on. And the accident that happened to him, the alien gave some of his body parts to Troy so that Troy could live, and he went into cryogenics. It involves a lot about the family structure and sort of like what happened to his family. Why is his family sort of like, he's just suddenly lost his mom and his dad and his grandfather in some massive conspiracy. So he's got to try and work that out, as well as like work out how to fix ships, pilot ships. He's never done anything like that, though he wanted to. So he was planning to leave the planet he lived on, but this was the best opportunity for him, really. So it kind of goes from there. It's a lot of virtual reality kind of like upgrades. He can upload digital data to his synapses, so he starts to learn and progress, like how to pilot the ship and how things work, and through the story. And it's like the different people that he meets along the way and how the mystery involves like all of sort of like the solar system. I go a lot into world building and build solar systems and whole universes and spaceships. I like building spaceships.
So you called it, you refer to it as a fantasy lit RPG, but I'm hearing an awful lot of science fiction involved.
Yeah, it's not really hard sci-fi, because obviously there's when you're firing in space, you can't. It's not instant. Nothing's kind of like. So there is a bit of fantasy side to it. There's a bit of magic involving the spaceships. The spaceships are kind of sentient. So that all comes out through the story, and sort of like how the whole thing progresses right through it. It's definitely not hard sci-fi, but I do put a lot of effort into the statistics about the ships, the progression through the ranks, because he's not military, so I have to kind of.
He's learning.
He's learning everything as much as I did, because it's like I'm not. I've never been military myself. I have to do an awful lot of research. Chris helped with that. He was like,
I'm sure
that's not quite the right term there, Dawn. And I was like, okay, that's fine. So he fixed a couple of things for me. But I've only had like British military people help me out, so they're not quite up on it as well. So it was very good to have Chris on board with his experience.
So the first book, how many, do you, I know how Chris works since I work for him. Obviously, I'm guessing you have other books that are ready to go.
Yeah, it'll be 3 months worth of books. So there's 3 books in this particular arc, so they'll be released one after the other with audio. I actually already had my narrator planned and booked when I started to work with Chris. And I'm actually an audio engineer, so I've done all the post-production work myself on the audio. So it's literally like 3 solid months of, good releases, I hope. So.
Oh, well, we'll see. I mean, I'm excited to. I'm actually a listener. I mean, sure you understand that I don't have time to read.
Yeah,
so while I'm doing something else, I'm listening.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm excited to hear the first book. Actually, I'm writing a lit RPG, but I'm calling it a science fiction right now.
Yeah.
That Chris was like, "Really, you're doing that?" Because I have this outside of my comfort zone. But anyway, so the first book comes out is next week, and monthly releases after that. Yep. So you got early
3
March,
books.
Early April, or mid. Oh, I have one. My next book in my core series comes out first week in April. So sounds
nice.
like you'll come out right after mine.
Yeah.
Anyway, so everybody needs to start looking for Dawn's book right now and get it. When we come back from the break, Dawn's going to talk about how she got going in this business. I'm Fred Hughes, and this is The Next Chapter. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Fred Hughes, in case you forgot, and this is the next chapter on Biz TV. We're talking to Dawn Chapman. Somehow she's decided she's going to hang around and talk to me a little more, and just got done talking about her new release that's coming out on the 7th of February. And now Dawn's going to tell us how she got into writing and doing some other things that I'm frankly envious of. So, Dawn, what made you decide to start writing, or how did you get into it?
I think as a child, I always remember going around what we call the old car boot sales. So it was like a yard sale for you, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And there was an old typewriter on the side of somebody's car. And I was saying to my mum, get me that. It's like, I want to try writing a story. I was about 6 at the time. And she bought me this typewriter, and you couldn't correct it or anything. It was one of them really old, fashioned
Mm-hmm.
things. Loved it. And I wrote my first story called Roger the Fox. And I've actually still got the original print. I didn't get rid of that this last couple of years. I got rid of all my old stuff. And I kind of went from there. It's just school and my imagination. I was brought up with sci-fi. My dad was a sci-fi fan, so everything that we watched on the television was all science fiction. When I could get to the library myself, my mum was a bit more of a horror kind of fantasy reader. So the stuff
Mm-hmm.
that she used to read, I used to read as well. So when I could go to the library myself, I was straight in the sci-fi sections. And I kind of progressed from there, really. I wrote my first novel when I was 16. It was like 170,000 words or something. I
Ooh.
tried to get one of my friends to take it to the States. And he couldn't do it in the end. It was too heavy. It was like proper printed out sheets. It was like 30 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of just eventually kept writing, kept revising it, tried to get it down, and it wasn't working. And one of my friends said, "Oh, why don't you try writing scripts?" And I was like, "Oh, that might be quite interesting." So I spent about 5 years writing scripts. I entered a good few competitions and things. Worked alongside a load of people that were trying to work with the BBC. That was very interesting. And sort of went from there, got into a film school in Liverpool, and I spent a couple of years doing training there. I found out I did produce a couple of things, and I've done a bit of directing myself, but I'm not something that I was really interested in. I'm just a writer. I just want to write. But that was like, I think I spent 12 years in sort of like script and film. I do have a couple of credits. I had a YouTube comedy with a friend out. It's not available anymore, but that was quite fun. It was like a little comedy series. And I just kind of, I think it was 1 year, I used to take part in Script Frenzy. It was a bit like NaNoWriMo, which some people might have heard of. And it was just basically write a script in the month of April. And eventually it stopped, and I was like, oh, what am I going to do? So somebody said, why don't you try the series? I actually wrote a sci-fi series. Why don't you try writing the sci-fi TV series as a novel? I thought, oh, that's a good idea. I'll do that. So when NaNoWriMo came around in the November, I put one of my first scripts for the series, and I turned it into a novel. And I was like, okay, I'm going to try and publish this. It actually took me 2 years to edit it, because coming from script to prose was very difficult.
Oh, yeah, I would imagine that was.
And I had a coach for a while. She coached me for about 12 months, and we went through the whole thing. I did a lot of beta reading with a specific group. Most of that's in the States, called Scribophile.
Mm-hmm.
I joined a very, very good group, and actually got to meet them because they flew over here 1 year. And I actually published my first book in 2015. My idea was I'd published it was supposed to be 3 books. I'd published the 3 books, and I hoped that I'd be able to give up the day job, like most people. I had like a 3-year plan. Life kind of got in the way, and it took me 4 years to actually give the day job up, but that was okay. I think with the script writing into sort of like books, I found a lot of my friends that I was making online were sort of like into voice acting and stuff like that. And a lot of
Mm-hmm.
them were like narrated audiobooks. So I was like, oh, I'll get my first book into an audiobook. So I kind of met sort of the online community for narrators all through that. And with having script sort of experience and being very good at listening to things and transcribing stuff, one of my friends asked me one day, do you think you'd mind proofreading, proof listening to my book? See if, and I kind of started out there with the audio side of things. And it just kind of took off, really. It was like what another friend wanted something, another friend wanted something else. And then I actually had my publisher was like, oh, you can do your own audio production. I was like, okay. So I was kind of thrown in at the deep end a little bit with Neil Helligers, who did one of my series. I'd never sort of like done another narrator's voice. I was kind of used to different things. So I made a lot of mistakes on my first book, as we do. I had to redo the whole thing, but that just kept progressing. So I picked up another couple of good clients, and I've been involved with that side of things for 7 years now, as well as being an author.
So author, screenwriter, scriptwriter, audio, voice, audio. I mean, you're just killing it, girl.
Yeah.
So, what do you like doing most? I mean, you have all of these fantastic job, that you do, roles that you have done.
I'm a writer at the end of the day. I love my other jobs, especially the audio production side of things, and I've found a balance which is very good for me. I get to listen when it's quiet in the UK. Most of the States is asleep. And it's like, so I get to do my job there in the morning when it's quiet here for like 6 or 7 hours. Then when everybody starts waking up, and then I swap and I do my other job, which is, being an author basically. So I kind of got it really well balanced. I can listen. The books that my narrators do that are my clients are all in my genre. There's very odd one that'll be in somebody gets like a romance or a cozy fantasy or something. So we get the odd one that isn't. So I get to keep on top of all the stuff that my genre produces, which is also really good for my job as an author. So it works for me, and I wouldn't give the audio side up because I just as productive on the writing side with it. I think if I was just writing, I don't think it'd be as interesting.
Yeah, I can see that because I just write, and then obviously there's other things that I do also, but totally outside this show what we do. But I find that sometimes you get in a rut, and like this lit RPG I was talking about that I'm writing now. I started writing that because I'd gotten in a little bit of a rut writing my core series, and I'm going, I need to change something up. And so I started writing it, and I'm going, oh, this is great. And I'm just powering through and getting words out. And it's like, now I worry about if I can get back to my core series again.
Of course. But, with Interstellar Porn, it was, I'd come from a very difficult year. I'd lost my mum, and then I lost my editor, who was it was like in the middle of a big series that was sold to Podium. I found that really, really difficult, and I kind of lost the momentum to write in that particular, like through the year, and I had to finish the book that I was writing, and it was very, very hard. So when I kind of, it was a pre-made cover that started Interstellar Porn off. I seen this cover and I was like, that looks like a complete sci-fi that I want to write. I just want to have some fun, just see where it goes, and that's exactly what I did.
And if you're not having fun, I tell people all the time, when this turns into a job, I'm probably going to stop, because right now I'm having fun.
Exactly.
And you just subtly answered a question that I was going to write, because you have all this other work that you have out there, your other series that you've written. And I was going to ask if you had traditionally published that or if you had indied it. And it sounds like you did some work with Podium.
Yeah, so I originally did self-publishing myself, learned an awful lot. And I started Lit RPG in the middle of like my sci-fi series. I needed a break, and it was like I discovered this genre because of the audio work I was doing, and I was like, oh, this is really great. Again, I seen a pre-made cover that was just spoke to me, and within like a week, I'd like three short books written, 30,000 words each, and it just blew my mind. I could write something so fast and just have so much fun with it. And I kind of went from there into the lit RPG genre and got eventually I signed with Mountaindale Press for a while, which was with Space Seasons. They gave me the series back in sort of like 2023 when my mum died, which was very nice of them. And sort of like the series with Podium came about just after that, so in the middle. That was actually the story behind that was 4 friends decided to get together and write a series based on the same city. So it's a very complicated series between all 4 of us, but with very different characters.
Well, let's put a pin in that because we need to take a break so we can pay some bill. We'll be right back. All right, we're back with Dawn. She was telling us about her experiences with various publishers, and you ended up with a gig with Podium, which actually is a credit to you because Podium is pretty picky about who they pick up as authors.
Yeah, it was a really good experience to work with them. They're an extremely professional company, and even working with the guys that we wrote together was just a whole other thing. It was unfortunate that I had a lot of family stuff happen in the middle of it, which kind of put a dampener on the series. But I absolutely adore the series itself. I put 18 months worth of research into it on flying helicopters because it's about piloting and sort of like cyberpunk. So I absolutely adore the series. And that's kind of what led me to Interstellar Porn, because I wanted that fun back with something sci-fi, and to kind of just get me incentivized to keep writing again, because I kind of lost it in the middle. It's but that's kind of
lose it.
It is, and when I started writing it, it was just it was a challenge. I love challenges. Me, it was like let's write 55,000 words in the month, like for November. And my friend was like, "No, let's do it in 5 days." I was like, "Okay, let's do it in 5 days." So
my fingers don't work fast enough to do that.
I actually had the whole month of November off. One of my clients was doing a lot of traveling and for his books, and so the whole month of November I wrote. And I think I did the first book and into the second book. Unfortunately, my stepdad died as well. So it was like I did stall out quite a lot. But my fans kept me going and kept me writing. And I finished the 3rd book in the April, this sort of like last year, which I did plan to self-publish. And then Chris put the call out for, and I've never seen him do it before. He was like, he put the call out for authors. And I thought, should I do it? And I was like, I spent all day thinking about it, and then I was like, I'll just write the pitch up. And then I spent another day writing the pitch, and then I sent it in. So there we go.
And that answered the next question I was going to ask is how did you end up getting involved with, the factory boss, Chris Kennedy?
Yeah. So I've known Chris and for his work and even your work because I am an avid sci-fi reader.
Well, thank you for that. Especially since it's Britannia. I write Britannia stuff. So
yeah, it's still really good stuff. So I've followed everyone for a long time. And Chris actually signed one of my friends who'd been writing for a long time as well, William Frisby.
Bill? Okay.
Yeah.
Bill's pretty cool.
Yeah, so I'd known him for a long time through NaNoWriMo again. And I was like, if Bill's working with him, he must be cool. So I was like, I'll get this pitch in. And I was like, I'm never going to hear nothing. It's one of them you think, everyone thinks, it's not the best series and, what will I?
Yeah.
And then the next minute, Chris messaged me, he was like, oh no, I'm interested, send the full manuscript over. And again, it was like, a while past, I'm thinking, no, nobody's interested. And he was like, no.
Chris is very decisive like that. When I I published my first three books as an indie, and somebody
Yeah.
said, you need to talk to Chris.
Uh,
And so I reached out to him and said, hey, because I knew him, I'd interacted with him at a couple of conventions, and I
yeah.
said, hey, I've got these three books that are out there as an indie, and I'm wondering, would you want to take it on and publish the rest of what I plan on writing?
Yeah.
And it took him all
That's
of about
great.
30 minutes to reply. Yes, send me what you've got.
Yeah, that's brilliant. He's been really good to work with. I've enjoyed it.
Wow.
And I'm enjoying it. I hope that the series does well because I've got loads of ideas to write more stuff. It's not going to end with three books. I would
No,
love to
no, no, no,
continue to
no.
do
I tell the story how my first three books, it was supposed to be a trilogy, and I
exactly.
stopped at nine because I wanted to switch story arcs, and now I'm
Yeah.
writing, it's the same characters, just in a quote unquote a follow-on
Oh,
series. So,
yeah.
uh,
I actually
anyway,
wrote a short story for this, but then it decided it wasn't going to be a short story, and now it's a full book all by itself. So,
I have that that's sitting on a back burner. The same thing. I wrote a short story for somebody. The whole anthology fell apart, and I'm going, you know what?
let's just
I'm
see
going
what
to write a
happens.
whole book, and I haven't done anything more than write the first book, but
Yeah,
it's sitting in the back corner of my computer waiting to be pulled back up again. Um,
brilliant.
so you've got these three books, and I hope you're working on more in the series.
Yeah, not at present. Like I said, I actually the last year I've wanted to wrap up a few series that I've left sort of
Okay.
like so I finished my sci-fi the series that I started with in 2015. I actually wrote the third book and finished that and published that last year. And Space Seasons kind of it was a long story, but it got cut off sort of like at book 6. So I'm actually going to publish book 7 and book 8, which will finish that series this year as well. Um, but as soon as kind of we get a little bit of feedback, hopefully, of people and they like this series with Chris, Interstellar Porn, then I'm hoping that I can then work on the next 3 books. And I'm a pretty quick writer. It's writing a book in a month is not hard for me. Editing it is hard. I have a really rigid editing before it goes anywhere else because
Oh yeah. I understand.
I
I do the same thing. I like to have a book that's pretty clean
my
when I send it in.
my grammar isn't really not good. I need my editors. I do know that. I understand that. So I have to polish stuff myself quite a lot before it goes anywhere. But I hope that I could at least have another 3 books going.
Well, Chris once told me, and this is sort of his mindset, because he was yelling at a bunch of us authors about the trash we were submitting. Um, you guys got to do better with what you're turning in. And so it wasn't a week later, he asked me, where's the next book in your series? And I'm going, well, I'm doing my edits on it right
Yeah,
now. And I'm thinking, like you told me to do.
yeah.
And he goes, send me the damn book. You're a storyteller. I've got people that can edit your book.
It is kind of it's hard. It's hard. There's not many people that have seen my really rough drafts. Some of my I used to have a Patreon going, which I paused last year, and a lot of my early readers were on there, and they've seen some really rough drafts, but not many do.
Hey, but that's the kind of feedback that an author, I
Yeah,
mean, you better be thick-skinned if you're going to be an author because you need to be
exactly.
prepared for that.
And
But
especially
it
in Lit
only makes you
RPG,
better.
it does. It really does. It really does.
So, last little bit here. Tell everybody the name of your book and where they can get it. So, Dawn,
Yep.
the
So
name of your book is,
Interstellar Porn, and the series is Through Steel and Stars, and you'll be able to get it on Amazon and audio and hopefully print. I've not seen print yet, but hopefully should be all 3 formats soon on Amazon.
and
Um,
I can attest that it is up there. So, look for it out there. It's going to be awesome, based on what I've seen of Dawn's other work. So I want to thank Dawn for being on
thank
this
you.
week's show. It's been fun. Um, for everybody out there, thanks for watching. My name's Fred Hughes. This is the next chapter. See you next week.